Okay. Give it a second.
Yep.
All right. Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Perfect. Okay. Cool. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, we're in for a treat today because, I did not know that there was a black comic shop renaissance that had happened and is, still happening. And I did not know there are over a dozen, if not more, black owned comic shops right here in yours, United States of America. You don't have to go to Canada. You don't have to go to Mexico. You don't have to fly out to France somewhere. Right here in America, right here for your own convenience. It's only a flight away. Depending on where you at, or a bus ticket away. You know, whether Greyhound or China, whatever you want to do. But listen, we about to get into this. This is Trayvon Copeland. Respect my nerds. I told you we coming back with interviews for you, to educate you, my black people, and our fellow other people too that want to rock with us. We cool. But listen, we want to get into this. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Terry Gant. He is the owner of Third Coast Comics that is located out of Chicago. My brother, how are you today, man?
Doing good, Trayvon. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm black, man. You see what I'm doing? You see what we're about, man. Bro, we are ready to rock and roll. All right,
100%.
Mr. Gant. So, first question: where you from, man?
I'm from the south side of Chicago, actually. My store is located in Rogers Park, which is the opposite side of the city, and it's on a college campus. I'm on the campus of Loyola University in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was reading something on your website. You guys were a brick and mortar shop before. Could you tell us more about that?
So, well, we were an online store. I started in 2005, like out of my house. So I was doing like internet comic shop where I would deliver to you if you live within 2 miles of my office where I was working downtown Chicago or where I live, right? So I easily just, jump on my bike or hop in the car, give you comics. But everything else is basically like websites and like eBay and that kind of thing. So I had customers that would just ship graphic novels to all over the country. I wasn't doing like subscriptions for all over the country, just graphic novels. I did it for like 3 years. And then in 2008, decided to be a brick and mortar, which is just to be a physical retail space to give out being an actual comic shop with a physical location a try. And we've been doing that ever since.
Oh wow, that is amazing, man. That's big time, man. Just to have that type of improvement. Like you got to start from somewhere and finish somewhere. So that's amazing. Because I'm starting to hear that some shops are closing down, man. It's just like, man, COVID. Some people couldn't survive after COVID, and I'm like, dang. Especially like some of them even like have bigger names than others, and I'm like, damn, even they're closing down. So it's like, it is what it is. But
Part of the thing with retail is that like, yeah, COVID was a factor, right? COVID hurt, and it hurts lots of businesses. It hurts businesses that aren't like mine. It hurts businesses that are like mine. But the trick is when you're a small store, when you're starting out, you have the benefit of being agile, right? Like you can pivot, you can make some moves because you're not a big box retailer, right? You're not Barnes and Noble, you're not Target, you're not Walmart. It's harder for those kind of businesses to make shifts and changes when big things happen in the economy, right? For a small shop, the only thing really stopping you is like the money can run out. Sure, you can have more bills coming in and you have customers coming in. That happens to all of us. But if you figure out a way to normalize the cash flow, kind of like even for the temporary, you can do some different. You can move a little different way. Like for COVID, what we did is, yeah, we got shut down. Oh, here's my UPS guy. Be right back.
All right, go ahead. I'm here. Fine. Terry's gonna let the UPS man in, and they have some words of wisdom on the chalkboard. Kanye West needs to come to this comic book shop. Maybe they can do a clothing line together. Customize big ass alien boots, because Kanye wear them big ass boots. You know what I'm talking about. Lupe Fiasco too. Lupe Fiasco needs to come to this comic book shop, and so does Common. I don't know. If my comic book shop, I don't know. Common's cool. Oh, and we're back.
We're back. Yeah. There's literal comic shop business happening right there.
Woo!
Yeah. So what I was saying is like, for us, when COVID happened and everybody was shut down, like it wasn't safe to be out. People didn't feel safe being out. One of the things that I did was just kind of go back to the way we treated it when we were starting out, was to have people just email me kind of like things that they were interested in. People had a lot of downtime on their hands. You know what I mean? So like they want to read things, right? But people were sheltering in place. So it was like, just tell me what types of stuff you're into. Don't even give me specific titles, right? Because a lot of our customers, this is their first graphic novel. You know what I mean? They ain't people who read the Avengers for 30 years. They're people who've like watched a few TV shows, watched those movies, but they don't know anything about anything, and they want to know. So I just say, give me your taste. Give me the things that you think the types of things you like to read, and give me a budget, right? And then I'll send you an invoice. You pay the invoice. I will send you a mystery box of books, right? And you're gonna love those books. So we did that. We're still doing it, right? And that helped us because there weren't people coming into the shop, right? And for 8 weeks, no one was going into any shop. So I was coming in just to do orders for like from the internet, from email, just tracking when UPS, like my man who just came through here, just tracking when he would be here, so I could be here to process those orders, because I didn't have any like no events, no customer base actually walking in the door, any of that. So like that's how I got through COVID. But like shops end up closing because there's a lot of overhead that you have to like consider carrying. It's a lot of dead weight. And if you end up in a situation where now customers can't even come to your store, or 75% of them can't, like it doesn't take a lot. 30% less customers will kill you, right? So like when that happened to people, yeah, you're gonna see some shops close. Right. I just kind of feel like as a comic shop owner, I'm just too stubborn to stay home. I should probably close too, but I'm just not. You know what I mean? Like when you look at the numbers, it's like, man, how am I doing it? You don't know how you're doing it. You just are. You just show up every day.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So getting into the question a little bit. Wow, because I'm like, wow, I know, like now I'm starting to think about it. You when you think of like the big cities, you think like New York,
yeah,
maybe Jersey. Those dudes read comics. We see movies about the kids reading comics. We see, to celebrities. They got so much, like, so many famous people. Like they read comics. I did not know.
Right.
Not for media, era of media. Yeah, I didn't know people in Chicago read comics. I didn't know people in Philly read comics.
Yeah, it comes from like, I don't know how old you are, right? But like
30.
When I started reading comics, like back in the 70s, what I got was a whole generation of people older than me telling me they used to read comics, right? They were into comics for a hot minute when they were kids, when they were younger, teenagers. Then in high school, like they discovered girls or whatever, and all those dudes got out of comics because they got into chasing girls, right? So here we are. I'm a teenager in the 80s, and to me, it was like I picked up something that somebody else put down, right? And then finding people who were into the same thing wasn't necessarily easy, but it wasn't the hardest thing in the world to do. Somebody sees you reading a comic in school and they go, oh man, what's that? I like comics too. Now you got a bunch of nerd friends. Like the trick was always, though, no one ever, the generation older than me, like my dad's generation, never could have foreseen the industry getting as large as it did. And my generation didn't foresee, like we would do fan casting of like movies because we never saw the MCU as something that would ever happen. Right. And like the same way when you just introduced me, like you didn't know how many black comic shop owners there are out there. There's a lot of black comic shop owners out there, it turns out. Generally most in big cities. But like you didn't know that, but I would have never guessed it either. My goal wasn't to be a comic book retailer, right? Like I'm a Gen Xer, and as a Gen Xer, I'm willing to bet that most people who were reading comics of my generation just thought if you're an artist, you thought you were gonna draw comics or write comics. You didn't think you could sell them, right?
Right.
Selling them was something old white men did. You just, it's hard to, I had no role model for retail.
Right.
Retail is something that you do as a job to jump to something else someday.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like that.
Wow. Okay. Who was some of your favorite, cause I like, it's so much. It's so much.
I got you.
All right. Who were some of your, favorite, like comic book characters, like coming up?
When I was growing up, so when I started reading comics, the ones that attracted me the most, there were two types of characters, right? There were the really cool, weird characters like Vision, like he was like an android in the Avengers, and he had like the coolest cape, and he had this varied set of powers, like just an interesting dude. He wasn't like he was stoic in his like in his personality, right? So like he didn't. There weren't a lot of like facial expressions he would use to draw the reader in. It was the way he processed information and gave it back to you, the way he related to the other Avengers. I love that guy, but I also love the Falcon. And then like I also liked a lot of the DC characters who weren't like who were simple in their powers but complicated in their stories a lot of times, right? So like, I'm a huge fan of like team comics because in team superhero books, you would get the different dynamics happening between the characters. So the characters had to be more simple in general to make the stories more complicated and therefore more interesting. So I was a huge fan of the Legion of Superheroes, like the New Teen Titans, the Justice League, the Avengers. Mostly team comics because I was getting more characters for my buck back then. You know, I didn't have a lot of money, so like I had to, if I bought a Batman comic, I got Batman. But if I bought the Fantastic Four, I got 4 characters. You know, so I just scaled up. Every time I found a team that had a lot of characters in it, that was my new jam.
Right. Okay. That's
what's up. You just gotta pick a favorite out of that, you know.
Right. Okay. So out of the Teen Titans, who was your like favorite?
When it was the Teen Titans, it was Changeling, right? Because what I remember most about the new Teen Titans era, so the Marv Wolfman, George Perez era, were that Changeling and Cyborg were the most interesting characters. But what Marv Wolfman was doing was he'd given you a baseline of characters who were former sidekicks of superheroes. Yes, some of them were familiar to fans and readers, like, you know, Robin and Kid Flash and Speedy and Wonder Girl and Aqualad. They were there. But he gave you Cyborg and Changeling and Raven and Starfire because you were getting kind of this this meta idea of the things that plague teenagers, the problems teenagers have. So each of their stories were about the problems a teenager could have in the greater society. And so their villains were also about that too. So if you read the first, like, say, 40 or 50 issues of the New Teen Titans, you're getting the New Teen Titans versus literal societal ills that teenagers face. For 50 issues, it was fantastic. I loved it.
Right. Man, see, you grew up with reading the comics. I grew up watching the cartoon. And, like, man, everybody, bro, Robin, that was Dick Grayson Robin. Hated Slade, who's Deathstroke, but they called him Slade. Like, man, you freaking hated them.
Really did. But and it was if you were reading the New Teen Titans and you saw what Deathstroke had put them through, you could see it. Not like we're gonna talk about a TV show a little bit. It's why I love the show Titans, because Titans, people were complaining it was too dark and it didn't seem like this was the Teen Titans they were familiar with. It wasn't, except it wasn't too dark. It was exactly as dark as the Marv Wolfman, George Perez comic was. The only difference was the comic was painted brighter. The themes were always dark, right?
Right.
Like, that hatred comes from a place. Yeah, I hated that dude.
Even with the pedophilia, which happened a lot more to say than not, with, you know, Slade and Terra, like she was a little older than she actually looked, but I was like, nah, bro.
She was 16. It was established that she was 16, and then in one panel it was clear she had sex with Slade Wilson. Yes. That's how you knew that she's evil. There's no coming back from this. No, that was willing. She willingly.
Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
She willingly, she willingly put Changeling through it, right?
Yeah.
And that was like their way of showing that, yeah, like Slade is off the chain evil, right? But like, this is creepy as hell. And in that one panel, it was like, nope. All right. There's no coming back from this.
You know what pissed me off with that? They gave Milestone such a hard time for putting condoms on their cover and showing Static Kiss Daisy, I think it's Daisy, and showing them kiss a girl. And they out of all this shit they said, man, and you know, to anybody, if any particular group, I'm not saying this word with intentions to hurt your feelings, but they said words like faggot, nigga, cracker. It said all that in Milestone Comics.
So the difference would be, okay, all right, so let's back up and consider the timing that we're talking about, right? So when I'm talking about the New Teen Titans, I'm talking about like 1981 to 1983. By the time we get to Milestone Comics, we're about 96, 97, right? So a lot of time had passed. Editors are different. Like, people's sensibilities are different. Yeah. Right. So by the time you get to the 90s, there's more risks being allowed, right? But when the risks are allowed, when those things happen, now there's also more eyeballs on your product. When the New Teen Titans came out, that was sold on newsstands, right? Like
Right.
that was everywhere for the most part, but only kids were reading it. By the time we got to Milestone, we had more than kids reading it and paying attention, and also therefore like a large media company sitting over the top of it, like Warner Brothers, right?
Right.
And now there's a greater microscope on what it is as an editor you allowed your artists and writers to do. So when the condoms are on the cover, no one ever said to the new Teen Titans, "Hey, you've implied that a 16-year-old had sex with a grown man." But absolutely, it's implied that teenagers, it's okay that they're having sex on the cover of the Static book. That's a different vibe. But like comics have always gone through that.
Okay.
You know, they've always gone through like the idea that comics are just for kids, running smack dab against the fact that 30-year-olds are reading comics, right? Their kids are reading comics, their parents are reading comics, and when it's corporate getting involved, corporate's terrified. So one or two bad like negative letters, like, you know what I mean, and corporate freaks out.
And they gotta move on. Nah, but I mean that's BS, man. Because you know what I'm talking about. There's so many comics that came out from like, cause let's not bring up the 80s. Okay, let's say 90s. There are so many comics that came out during the 90s where I'm pretty sure the cover was inappropriate. You know, it's just like, you know, I don't know, like I kind of sided with the Wayne McDuffie. Like they were more uncomfortable with seeing black love than necessarily teenagers implying comics.
No, I mean that may also be true. It might be, but both of these things can in fact be true.
That's true too.
Right?
Yeah.
So in the 90s, you've gotten, so I like to refer to it in timeline form as like the 80s independent era was done with. And a lot of things happened in the 80s independent era that were phenomenal for comics. Yeah. But man, some dark and really weird stuff happened too. The independent scene in the 90s wasn't so great, right? Yeah. And then at some point there were a few standouts. So if you go looking at comic book covers and comic content in the 90s, you can see people getting edgier and edgier and edgier. But the difference is, if you're an independent comic book company, there's not a corporation watching what you do or who cares about what's on the cover. You're not selling comics in newsstands. You're not selling them at Walgreens. They can't be sold at the CVS or the Target. They're only sold in comic shops. So there's no eye on what you're doing for the greater public. You have more leeway in that case. Right. But Spider-Man wouldn't be on the cover of his book, like laying down with Mary Jane and there being a condom on the bed. Marvel would have never done it. They would have been afraid to do it. They just wouldn't have done it. You know?
Well, later Marvel did do a lot of like stuff. Like they got into, like, you know, again, I'm not saying this to hurt anybody's feelings. Like they got into showing, you know, homosexuality more. You know, like kissing is one thing, but they got into, you know, showing people in bed together and shit like that.
Yeah. So like as time passes, that's exactly a thing that you can do, because once it's done, it's done. Right. Once it's done and it's sold, you can't tell the next creator they can't do it. It's been proven that it works. Right? The audience paid attention. The audience didn't freak out. Like the idea was always, this goes all the way back to the 20s and 30s, right? With the idea that comics are going to contribute to juvenile delinquency. Like somebody has to be riding over the top of it. Like somebody has to like watch out for these kids because here come the comics and the comics are going to mess them up. Well, the truth is life can mess you up. Right. And once we stop worrying about all that kind of stuff and just get into like letting creators be creative, right? Good editing is always needed in comics, right? But you don't have to like legislate out like the simplest of things as if somebody has to be protected from it. You can't tell me that I can't see Marvel character X like showing love as even homosexual love. You can't tell me I can't see that while also then letting me hear like all the music with all the violence, all the video games where I could rob a prostitute and steal a car. Like you can't tell me comics are where the problem is, right? Like, you can't, when the number one show in America is more violent than any comic is ever going to be.
For real. Like they don't see things at home. They don't see worse things at home before trying to imply trying to imply that a comic book is an issue. But yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. All right, so going into comics a little more, who were some black comic book characters that you kind of attach yourself to, or you just like away from Blade and Spawn?
Blade and Spawn weren't on my list. I never actually cared for Blade or Spawn. I was so for black characters for sure. Sam Wilson of the Avengers. I was a huge fan when I was a kid. I was a huge fan of Sunspot, who's a black Brazilian in the New Mutants. Huge fan of his. Fan of Black Panther. There were other characters too, like in the Legion of Superheroes. I liked when they created Kid Quantum, right? That was a character that I liked a lot. Like I really dug that. There's a version of Starboy in the Legion who's black, right? Who I thought was a cool depiction, great costume. You know, like there's a ton of characters. Like Cyborg was always great. There was an era of Jeff Johns' JSA where there were 4 black characters in the group, including the leader. So Mr. Terrific, Jakeem Thunder. There was like an Amazing Man, and there was like another character too. They were all black, and like I felt like, man, here's a group. You shouldn't have to have a group of 15 members that have 4 black characters, but they did it, and everybody had everybody had their shine. Oh, it was also in the book where I think both of Black Lightning's daughters may have been in that book at the time. You know, like Thunder and Lightning.
Thunder and Lightning. Okay.
Thunder and Lightning. Yeah.
Okay.
There's just a lot. Like there's just times in which you're looking around, like Night Thrasher of the New Warriors. That first like 40 issues of New Warriors are fantastic. Night Thrasher he was great. He rode a skateboard. He hid an Uzi behind the skateboard. When people
fun fact. I actually said I want to write. I said I want to write him for some strange reason. I won't want to write Night Thrasher. But fun fact, I believe that Kick-Ass is a plagiarized Night Thrasher. He got the same baton of thingies that he used. I call them beatdown sticks. He got the same costume, with just a little modified, and they just turned them white and turned it into a parody. And
no, okay, I wouldn't say that, because like that's almost like that's too easy, right? You can say Night Thrasher. You could also say Nightwing. You could say any number of characters. You could say Daredevil. You could say, but I can make an argument that it's Spider-Man without powers.
He don't look like Nightwing's costume. He look like
I would go when we're talking about comic characters. The last thing I would use to make something allegorical, and I'm going to use allegorical, not ripoff, because this is comics, and anybody can be inspired by anything. I'm going to go allegorical. The last thing you want to use most of the time is the costume.
All right, I feel you.
Legit. Like using the costume is almost like low-hanging fruit, because when you start looking at costumes, everyone's costume looks like somebody's costume. What you want to do, if you're going to say that a character is inspired by another character, look at what the core of the story is, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about for doing any kind of allegorical thing in comics. And I wouldn't think Mark Miller would have considered that Night Thrasher would be where he needed to go, because if he was, Kick-Ass would have had a lot more money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Broke, teenagers.
Yeah. That's why I said you can make a better argument for Spider-Man, because really he's Peter Parker, like, who can't do all the powered stuff, right? Because his life is basically the life of a loser kid who got himself into something, right? Who needs to sit down somewhere, but he can't sit down somewhere, and he's constantly taking an ass whoop, you know? That's Kick-Ass. It's Peter Parker, you know?
I feel you, because Peter Parker does get beat up sometimes, but he'll come back.
That's the whole point.
Peter Parker will come back and run the ones with you. I'm trying to find this. I'm on my Facebook. I'm trying to find this. This link somebody sent me of all the black comics that was out in the 80s. But you know about like Nubia Force, Brother Man.
Sure. Yeah. Those are old school. Yeah. But like, see, here's the other thing between then and now too, right? Now, if you wanted to do a comic, if you want to start a comic and just like drop a graphic novel on folks, all you got to do is put the work in. Now, get your book drawn, right? Yeah. Save your money, get it printed, and then do the work to get it distributed. And like, it might be easier said than done, but man, it can be done. Back then, in 1979, like 1980, like 85, back then, if you wanted to get a comic done and you were doing it on your own, not only was it like an uphill battle just getting your skills together, right? Because, a lot of us were artists who everybody around us told us we was nice with it, but we really might not have been, Right. And you just hammered at it and hammered at it and hammered at it. Now you done drawn the book. Where do you get it printed? No one can tell you, because no one's printing independently on their own. They found some publisher who published it. If you can't get a publisher, you had an uphill battle finding somebody to print the damn thing. And then once it was printed, not only did it cost everything, but how do you get into a shop? How do you get into a newsstand? Like, it's so hard to do. So a lot of those old school independents had this battle to go through, because it was the networking was so difficult back then. Now, just spend a couple of years, draw your book. I would advise you to get 64 pages done. Don't drop a first issue on anybody and go straight graphic novel. And let me tell you, you'll easily find out how much it costs to print yourself 5,000 copies. And after that, start making phone calls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your book is out there.
Yeah. I feel you on that, man, because I was saying, like, dude, like, so many people go through the progressions. I'm like, bruh, if you want to breadcrumb it, then okay, breadcrumb it. But I would advise you, I would pay the top dollar to get your graphics better. Like I have a little expertise in that because I was helping market certain people's comics and things like that. That's how like if you went on my page and see some of my interviews, that's how I got some of my most of my interviews is, hey, I tell you what, I'm not asking for money and I can't pay to do an interview, but I tell you what I can do. I will advertise something so people who used to work for either DC or Milestone, like DC Image or whatever, they got their own thing they got going on now. So I'm like, okay, well, fine. I would, I'll promote that. I'll put that in the highlights. Say they also working on this. Like tomorrow, I'm interviewing Roosevelt Pitts, Purge. Okay. Yeah, I'm interviewing him, and his comic is getting a movie. So that's yeah.
But a lot of that is the grind, right? Like my advice to people who want to do if you want to do your own comics out there, look at what you're doing now. Consider how like if you've never done this before, consider how great everybody already thinks that you are, right? And how good you are at what you do. Think about all of that, and then say to yourself, "No, I'm not," and get better, right? Because the competition out there is fierce, right? Get your. It's not just anatomy, right? Because we're beyond the point of superheroes being this thing that just moves the needle automatically, right? It's not. Anyone can draw a dope character in a great pose, right? Learn to draw from life, draw life scenes, draw people having conversations around the table, draw people sitting on some planters or something outside of a Taco Bell, right? With trees and things. Like, get the perspective right, get the mood right, get those skills, because those are the kind of those normal level skills, the stuff that's boring. Think about what you hate to draw. Draw that more. Draw what you hate to draw. Draw what you can't, what you think you can't do. Do that thing. Get better at that. It will make everything else better. Make your book more interesting, right? Then you'll get a job, right? Then it's going to be hard as hell publishing it yourself, sure, but it'll be worth doing it, because if you're wherever you think you are now, if you think you're nice, you think you're good with it, you think you've got it, you're not there yet, right? Because it's everything you're not drawing is exactly what's going to hold it back.
Right. Okay, so what inspired you to want to own your own comic shop? Like because they don't highlight it, they don't promote us doing anything.
For me, it came down to like once it was done, like it was once I opened the doors, right? I had an opportunity to preach the love of comics the way I do. Like that's what it was about. Like it isn't about like, oh my God, I get to be a Black comic shop owner. Like, honestly, I opened a comic shop not thinking about how many Black comic shops there were. I had no idea. I didn't care, right? It wasn't in my brain that I was going to be a Black comic shop owner. I was in it to teach and evangelize about what comics can do for people, right? So that's what it is that drives me. So now that I've been in it all these years, that's exactly what I do, right? It's great when I find somebody else in the industry who does what I do, right? But the way I do it, with the personalized shopping experience and the history of comics, and when I teach my comics appreciation classes and things like that, when I do these seminars that are like, I'll do like graphic novel and lifestyle mixture. So I'll do a wine and comics seminar, I'll do a beer and comics seminar, I'll do bourbon and comics seminar. I'll do things like that, right? And in doing those events, I'm matching people who are curious about comics but aren't huge collectors. But I'm matching the comics with something they're already into, that they're doing in it. So I'm getting them to read the kind of graphic novels that work with something else they already do in their lives when they're chilling, right? That's kind of what I'm in it for.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing, because I'm also advocate for pushing for young Black kids to read, because reading is fundamental, and sometimes you might not want to read a book. Novels are kind of boring to just sit back and just read pages. It's not kids. They like imagery. That's why I like. And so I was like, okay, well, if you like imagery, a graphic novel, that'll do it. So
it's also like when you're what graphic novels do is exactly that. It's hitting your brain at multiple different areas, at different spaces and different levels. it helps when you then are going to go back and read something that's novelized, right? When you are going to go back and read like pages and pages, it helps you then visualize the concepts that they're giving you, right? Like
Right.
it's not like comics didn't just start in 1963, right? Hieroglyphics are comics,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like comics have been around forever. Like visual communication has been around forever, and all it does is just help you synthesize information.
Right. All Negro comics in the 50s. You
100%.
know, like which Marvel plagiarized off of. Now that we can get into if you want to. It's almost on the tongue. All right. I'll tell you about that off the phone. But okay, so let me see. Who are some like, cause I know Marvel's doing a Judgment Day, which some people don't like and some people do, but
That's just kind of general. Yeah.
are you like have any like like Excellence and Bitterroot and people like Philadelphia, they're with Image, have they came to you with trying to sell their comics at your store?
They don't have to. They're already distributed by Diamond. So like I don't really need like you gotta come to me to get distributed to in my store if you're an independent guy with no deal, right? If you made your own book and you're just hand selling it, yeah, hit me, right? But like if you've got a book that's gonna be in Preview's catalog because you're with Diamond or Dark Horse or Boom or Oni or like any of these companies, I'm already gonna see it. Right. And then I can order. It makes it easy for me to order. That's like the easiest thing to do. But like if you're at the level where your work looks like Kerry Randolph's work, if you're at the level where your work looks like Sanford Green's work, right? Then shit, you can do anything you want, right? But like if you're not there, then you're independently doing it on your own. You need to try to get that's the level, the quality of work is what you're aiming for, not necessarily the company they're being published by, right?
Okay.
But if you are published by those guys, then it's fine. Like Philadelphia is on my shelf, and I had no idea who those guys were, what they were about when Philadelphia came out. I happened to only know it because one of my customers is from Delaware, outside of Philly, and he hit me up to it. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll order it. You know, a lot of times I just don't know. So yeah.
Philadelphia is the bomb. No, okay, so yeah. Can you hear that? They're taking out the trash. Can you hear that?
No. I heard something, but it's all right.
Okay, cool. Like, no, I got my noise.
You're good.
I got noise reduction on, so
yeah, I think it's working.
Higher, turn it up a little higher. Okay, what about now? Can you hear?
You were good before. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, no, okay. So yeah, that's a question I was gonna ask. Like, I got some people I recommend you. You know, we talk about that offline, but I was just curious. Like, did anybody come to you? Because I could definitely recommend some people, like some comics that I know you would like. Because like I've been on this.
Send me your list.
I'll see, dude. I will send you a list, and you just tell me, some people who you.
Yeah, because generally, what would happen is if it's stuff that's already on my shelf, fantastic. It's already on my shelf. If it's stuff that I need to be up on that I can get from my shelves, that's what I'll do. You know.
Yeah, for real. No, definitely. I definitely, man. I got at least 5 right now. I got at least 5 right. But okay. So like, which is another thing. Like, how exactly does that work for someone? Like you said, they're not mainstream. They're independent. How does that work for them to come and like present their idea to you, and how does that get processed?
Generally, so what I would tell people is don't present an idea, present a book. So when you walk into a comic shop and you're an independent creator, don't tell people you're working on a book. Can I sell it here when it's done? Don't do that. Nobody's interested in that. Bring me a book that's finished, right? When a book is finished, when it's in your hands and you've got several of them in your backpack, that's when you take it to a comic shop, right? And what I would say do is like scout comic shops out first, right? See if they have a section for locally made comics or independent comics first. See how if that's respected. See if it's in the back of the store in some kind of like indie comics ghetto, right? Then you don't really want to fuck with those guys. But like if you go into a shop and like local comics or like zines or like indie books are right up front, like where you see them when it's one of the first things you see when you walk in, you absolutely want to get with that shop. But you want to give them a finished product, right? And you want to be able to be trying to restock it often, right? You want to work out like an event with those dudes where you can like come and do a signing, or where you can bring people, like you're bringing your people who want to get their hands on your book, but you're also introducing more people to their store, and they're going to bring people in the door who can get their hands on your book. But now here's the catch. Don't get, this is why I say don't get caught up on getting a number 1 out there, because it is really difficult financially to pull off, let's say, 12 issues of a comic or 6 issues of a comic in a timely way. Everyone is competing for the same dollars.
Right.
I would advise get your graphic novel done, 60
Right.
pages or more, right? Get that done and printed because that has no shelf life, right? There's no expiration date on that, right? There is an expiration date on your number 1 if it takes like 9 months, a year and a half to get to number 2. No one remembers your number 1. They're not going to buy your number 2, and you're blowing your money. So don't do that, right? If you know, if you're independently wealthy, or you ain't got to worry about the cash flow of it, if you know that you're gonna be banging out a 1 and a 2 and a 3, fine, that works, I guess. But in every shop that you got to go into and put your book in, because you're not with Image or Dark Horse or Oni or Boom or anybody, like you're independently published, really low end, like kind of like old school doing it that way. If you're grinding like that, you got to grind like that every time you get an issue out, and no one's guaranteed to like stick around for the next issue, no matter how good you think you are. So I say go graphic novel route, get 1 book done, and let that be that. All right, it's time for me to open the door. So let me go and lock. I'll be right back.
Okay. He's gonna open the door. He's gonna let people in. Lupe Fiasco needs to come to this store.
All right, Trayvon, I'm back.
All right, we're back. Okay, all right, cool. Now, I was about to say, I know I'm about to wrap it up. We're about to wrap it up. We almost at our mark. But damn, what was I about to say? Oh, I was gonna recommend that the Shaw, like highlight Shaw, man. How the hell y'all in Chicago? How the hell they supposed to be highlighting Chicago? And I'm like, you don't even know about this comic shop, man. Like I would definitely love to see that on the Shaw. You know the Shaw, the TV show, the Shaw.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm like, shoot, like Kevin like to play video games. They still, if he like to play video games, he can read a comic book, and especially, you know what I'm talking about, man.
That's part of my thinking about how the industry is promoted in general, right? Like the industry promotes or respects things on screens, right? We are less concerned with things that are in print. Print doesn't get the respect. Once it hit a screen, all anybody thinks about is that a screen is involved. So you will see characters on TV shows and in movies all over their tablets or video games or something like that. You don't often see them dealing with any kind of print media, right? Which then doesn't promote print media.
Well, you can buy digital. You can get digitals too. You can get digital. You can get digital copies because like I travel a lot, and I know a lot of people like shoot like I ain't finna start name dropping Black Sands, Crescent City Monsters, the Power and freaking it's not the West Spider, freaking Concrete Comics. Like, dude, I know all of them. I know a lot of people. I'm like, yo, I travel. I don't need hard copies. Get me the digital copies. Like, so that's always a thing too. Like you said, they on their tablets, they on their phones. I read a lot of comics on my phone. You know, like shoot, when I finally got settled in somewhere and I got a laptop shooting, I started reading on my laptop. So, you know, there's always an alternative. Like, but I do get you like the money's definitely in the hard copies, but like digital copies sell too.
Well, it's not even about the money per se. It's about like when you're trying to grow part of your industry, right? You need more people in it that are already in it now, right? Right now, comics are designed to be sold to people who are already in the comics. All of the movies and media attention all that really does is gives a lot of promotion to the movies themselves, right? They're not, when you watch them here, my best example of this a lot of times, when you watch that Avengers movie, right? At the end of the Avengers movie, there was a couple like after credit scenes. In one of the after credit scenes, the Avengers went and did something together. What did they go and do?
They went and ate, right? They went and ate.
Right. And the shawarma industry saw a huge boost after that because the Avengers went and ate shawarma after, right? There were no comic shops in the film. They didn't walk past the comic shop. They didn't walk through a comic shop, right? In the movie, there's something that inspires the Avengers to get together that's in Coulson's locker. It's not comic books. It's Captain America trading cards, right? They were planted, right? They were planted there by Fury. Fury could have planted some Captain America comics, right? He could have, but he didn't, right? All that happens is a lot of times the greater screen-related media, is focused on promoting itself and not the source material. So,
okay, right. I see what you're saying. I get the reference point.
Right. So yes, you could read a comic digitally, right? But it just means that, okay, great, you're going to read that comic digitally, which I have no issue with, really. But you're not going to go to comic shops and get a stack of comics. You're not going to start that bug isn't going to hit you the same kind of way, right. Like that's it, yeah.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, I wish we had more time. This man is amazing. He's doing amazing things. Whoa, hold up. One more thing. Tell us about what's happening. What's happening in Chicago, the sci-fi event. Can you about that, please?
Got it. All right. So Chi-Con 8, which is a division of WorldCon. So WorldCon has been a sci-fi and fantasy convention that's been going on for like 80 years. This is the 8th time it's landed in Chicago. Every year, different cities are bidding on it every year. It's awarded to a different city year after year after year. This year, Chicago got it. I am the head of comics-related content for this convention, which is happening September 1st through 5th at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in downtown Chicago.
Yay!
So I'm on several panels and doing several different comics-related events. There's probably like 20 or 30 different events that are comics related. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be around, Hey,
Chicago doing it, man. Chicago is doing it, man. Mr. Gant. Sorry, Mr. Gant. Terry.
It happens,
brother. I know, right? I gotta get more words together. I have a friend named Terry Grant, which is like a tongue twister. I'm like, damn, like, okay, now I know a Gant and a Grant. But anyway, listen, man, brother. I appreciate you for your time. I appreciate the interview. Please keep doing what you do. Like, you hit me up anytime with whatever you need, bro. I'm there. Let's rock and roll. Dude, I commend you, brother. I lift you up, man. I wish you nothing but positivity and productivity, brother. Please continue to strive. And hopefully, when I go to Chicago, I'm out to get me a comic, man. I'll let you know.
When you come through.
Yeah, you got it. All right, man. Listen, y'all, we are out. Respect my nerves with Mr. Terry Gant. Nerves. We out of here, man. All right, man. Peace.
Take it easy.